Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. You might also know me as the editor-in-chief of Supply Chain Movement, the European quarterly magazine, but also a website and a bi-weekly newsletter and a huge LinkedIn group. Welcome to this live webinar. In the next 60 minutes, we're going to talk about S&OP, how to sell it to sales. So the title of this webinar is Sales Are from Venus and Operations Are from Mars. Very recognizable. So with me, I have an expert on this matter. So to the left, you see me, and to the right, you see Richard Evans. He's Managing Director of Slimstock for the UK and the Nordics. So Richard, hi.
Hi, pleased to meet you. How are you, Martin?
I'm fine. And first, some household rules. So this webinar will be recorded, and the PDF will be made available afterwards within 48 hours. So all the attendees are on mute, but please ask questions. So you see on the right-hand side, you see the functionality part of AirMeet, the platform you're using. So you have a chat function, and in the chat function, everybody can see it. But also, please use the Q&A function to ask questions. And you can ask these questions along the conversation I will be having with Richard. If these questions are in line of the things we are discussing at that moment, I will ask these questions right away. If not, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So make sure that these questions will be answered at that time. And if you'd like to talk further with us about S&OP, also among each other, feel free to join us at 5 o'clock CET. So after this hour, we'll be sitting in the lounge. So Richard and myself will be sitting at table 1. So basically, you can sit down, and a Zoom kind of meeting is opening up. So you can have a further conversation with Richard and myself about the stuff we are talking, and maybe some other stuff. So basically, why are we talking about S&OP? So we did a survey among 106 manufacturing and retail companies in Europe right after the first wave of COVID. And basically, what we saw is that we asked the companies where are you going to invest in the next 12 to 18 months, and they said mainly on number one S&OP, and then end-to-end supply chain visibility came inside. So as you can see here on the bar chart, the blue ones is the overall respondents. So you see clearly S&OP on number one, and the orange one are the more mature companies. So on the level 1 to 5, the 4 and 5 maturity levels. So the mature companies have slightly different investment plans. Still, S&OP is on their agenda, also the mature company. And little bit below with the dotted lines, you see prescriptive analytics is more on the agenda of the mature companies, whereas inventory management and statistical forecasting, the core of Slimstock, we could discuss later, they already implemented to a part. But Richard, what is your opinion? Is it recognizable, these kind of investment plans?
Yeah, certainly. I think from the conversations I'm having with our customers and different companies here in the UK, I think, and what's gone on we all know about in the last couple of years and continues to go on, things like S&OP and the planning and certainly being far more competent is very much on businesses' agendas.
All right. Before we get a deep dive into sales and operation planning, I'm going to explain. So, Supply Chain Media publishes every year our SCM IT subway map. This is the version of last year. We're going to update it in the next quarter in Q2. And as you can see, highlighted with the red circle, Slimstock is also on it. And zooming in, Slimstock originally started out as inventory management, and later on statistical forecasting, demand planning, and moving on, expanding their portfolio also into S&OP and some further functionalities, and we discuss it later on. But this is the positioning of Slimstock. But now over to you. We're going to talk about S&OP. So, Richard, maybe you can explain. So, how do you explain S&OP? And maybe you have some anecdotes yourself about this.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think everybody overcomplicates S&OP, and I was trying to think of a way of simplifying it or making it clear. And actually, this is a real life situation from yesterday morning, and sort of maybe I'm declaring some things that my wife would not want me to declare here, but I'm sort of hoping that people listening can also relate to this. But yesterday morning we woke up, and if I call my daughter the sales director of our business, my wife, she's very much the managing director, and I'm the operations director. And we woke up and were sat around the breakfast table, and the sun was shining. It was a lovely morning here in the UK. And my daughter announces to me all of a sudden, or announces to us, that she needs to get a list of ingredients together, actually, because today was the day that in her cooking class, she was making spaghetti bolognese. So I think if you have a look at where we're going on the next slide, Martin, you can see that this was her job. She gave us a list of ingredients for my spaghetti bolognese. Mum, Dad, this is what I want to do. Immediately. So we open our fridge, and our fridge very much looked like this. So we found ourselves in a bit of a quandary. So of course, stress starts to happen, arguments start to happen, and firefighting very much starts to happen. The result is Dad jumps in his car and whizzes round to the local village shop, where I need to buy a load of things to satisfy my daughter's shopping list. I need to get things like mince meat and some tomatoes, things like this. As I'm sure everybody can relate to, my local village shop is not the most economic place to buy things. So I end up buying expensive meat in packages are too big. I end up buying substitute things. And this was all in a rush, all in a panic. And you might think, what has this got to do with S&OP? But this is very similar to how many businesses are, or what they're trying to avoid, because there are many results that came out of this. And if you look at the next one, you can see that really this is where the problems start. I was late for work. My daughter was a little bit late for school. So first of all, it was a late delivery. There was certainly no peace in our household yesterday morning. Very stressful, full of arguments, full of tension. I had to buy 500 grams worth of meat when she only needed 200 grams. So obviously there's 300 grams straight away in the bin. Me running around at 1,000 miles an hour, driving everywhere to get this. I wasn't tremendously environmentally friendly yesterday. I wasn't able to get everything she wanted, so she went to school with bad quality ingredients. And of course, it cost me a fortune to sort this out. And really, you might, again, what the heck has this got to do with S&OP? Well, my lead time here, or our lead time to get these products, is probably 7 days. We go to the supermarket, we do a big shop every 7 days. And she told us with less than an hour or two notice. So if she'd have just got a bit of a better vision, if we'd have had a bit of better communication, if we'd have been a bit more collaborative as a family and as an S&OP process within our family, we would have completely come out of yesterday morning in a lot more of a peaceful manner than we actually did do. So I appreciate it's a silly little anecdote, but it really can reflect how many businesses are operating without an S&OP process in place.
Yeah, I can imagine, if you have a more, more frequent conversation at the breakfast table of what do you need tomorrow or later this week, you have a different kind of setting than you had yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and if related to
yeah, exactly. Yeah? I mean,
go ahead.
No, I said, admittedly, 14-year-olds and communication are not two words that go well together.
But do you think that salespeople are like 14-year-olds?
Yeah, I think they are in many ways. Focused on what they want to achieve, very ambitious about what they want to achieve, looking at their own objectives, and also they talk in a language that is maybe not the same language that you and I understand.
So maybe if you take it to a broader sense, in a business sense. So what do you see as sales versus operations? So the title of your webinar is sales are from Venus and operations are from Mars.
Yeah, I see. I think that the biggest issues is that, and I'll come on to it in a bit later, but maybe at the very top of organizations, there is alignment in what people want to achieve. But it doesn't take much further to go to really get a different way of thinking. And sales have one objective, one goal, one priority, but operations and finance, for that matter, might have completely other goals, priorities, and they might contradict one another even. they even talk in different languages. I've never heard of a salesperson or a sales department talk in units or tons or packages or anything like that before. They all talk in revenue, euros, dollars, pounds. Whereas I've never, it's very common in an operations department to be talking in units, SKUs, tonnage. So, they talk in different languages, and we need something to bring it together. And then I think the final point is that many of these departments, when I go to meetings, they almost joke, oh, that's what Fred said in sales, or that's what John said in operations. The only time they only ever have positive communication is when something bad happens. They have to react to it. So there's no proactivity. There's no being very on the front foot and communicating effectively. It's always arguments, reactive, and under stress. And of course, we all know that you're never going to get positive outcomes when that's the environment.
No. So Slimstock and Supply Chain Media did a large survey last year in the Netherlands among 150 manufacturing, wholesale and retail companies. Basically, the end conclusion was there's a huge misalignment between business objective, business goals, supply chain strategy and supply chain objectives, and inventory strategy. So basically, from top down, your business and company strategy, your supply chain setup and strategy, and the inventory strategy. Totally misalignment. So what it is what you want to achieve as a company, and it was quite scary, I would say, that even successful companies, they have some extent a misalignment on that matter.
Yeah, I see it all the time. The amount of times I walk into a business, the finance department is telling, their objective is to reduce the working capital that's tied up in inventory, and then sales and marketing, their objective is to supply everything that's in the catalog, and the two objectives just contradict one another.
Yeah, and if you see, there are basically three business strategy. One is operational excellence, the lowest cost. One is the product leader, the high-end quality one, and the third one is customer intimacy. So in a lot of companies I see, logistically thinking about operational excellence, marketing is thinking about product leadership, and sales is thinking about customer service. And then you get stretched as a company in three directions, and then you get this kind of this miscommunication arguments that you see here and on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Really common.
And now we're getting in a more VUCA world, volatile world with all kind of disruptions. So how do you relate to that? Because sometimes it's predictable, but on the other hand,
I think if the world was always calm and harmonious, there wouldn't be a problem. I think, but I'm sure this phrase has been said far too many times for people want to hear at the moment, but we really are living in a chaotic environment. And on one hand, we have sort of what we call the white swan events. I guess these are known unknowns. So this might be planning for volatile demand or planning for variation in lead time or something. And to some extent, we can cover ourselves against this. We can use certain tactics and communications to cover ourselves. But then we really also, we have these black swan events, and they seem to be coming far too often or far too common at the moment. But COVID, fuel going through the roof, inflation, which for many people in the workplace, many people have never experienced inflation like this. And then you've also got what's going on in Ukraine, and you don't see these coming. And it really is virtually impossible to plan for. But it's important to understand and sort of expect that these outside influences will happen, and we need to understand the damage or the influence they can have. And we really need to make it aware that the good companies are really mitigating the risk against these where they can, but also capitalizing on the opportunities that they prevent. And I think that when you've got a misalignment of goals, and when you've got a lack of transparency, and when you've got imbalances, these black swan and white swan events actually really amplify that misalignment. Whereas I think we all accept that we all accept that no one has a crystal ball. But if you have these things in place and you are aligned, at least you are in a better place to deal with what comes around the corner.
Yeah, and especially now that we need to have safety stocks. That's where they were meant to be for. But getting back to the S&OP part and the sales and operations part. So So what is your advice? How do you align sales and operations?
Yeah, so I think for me, there's some three common things I think that we could all do relatively quickly, and that I think we need to establish common goals.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to empower people with information. I think empowerment is easy to say, but I think you need to give them the right information at the right time. And I think you also need to be able to enhance the knowledge. So we need to accept that we're not the finished article. We need to accept that we need to improve. We need to look at our flaws and say, okay, we need to train. We need to be better at this. So this perpetual improvement, I think, are the three things that we could all embark on.
So let's focus first on the establish the common goals. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I think if we break down a business into having sort of three levels, so strategic, tactical, and then sort of the executional with the milestones and the metrics, and we can see that quite often we see the executive level is working at the strategic level, the management level is working at this tactical level, and then the operational level is working at this sort of executional level. And I appreciate it's a simplistic picture, and maybe it's a little bit more complex than this. But we need to make sure that we understand what these common goals are, not just at the top, but actually they go all the way through the organization. Because I see, and I think if you roll forward, I think what we can see is that if I just assume that the red, by the way, is the sales department and the blue is the operations department, right at the top, we might have the same objective. Our objective might be, let's grow market share. Let's eat into our competitors' space and grow our market share. And that's a great, lovely strategy. But then how are we actually going to do this? Well, the sales guys are going to maximize revenue. The operations guys are going to maximize stock turn. Well, straight away, those two objectives, whilst I appreciate they are needed, without context of the other person's objective, they seem to be in a dichotomy of one another and against each other. And then when you go to the next level, it's even worse in the sense that sales are saying, right, one of our boasts to market is everything in this catalog is available. And then the operations guys are being told that they need to rationalize the range because there's too much breadth. So you can see it's almost like a bullwhip effect within an organization if we don't actually really align what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and in this example, they have the same goal of winning market share. And in our inventory strategy survey in the Netherlands, it was already quite clear that on the top, you have already different business strategies, either operational excellence, customer intimacy, or product leadership. So you already saw at the top there were already differences, and then in the mid layer that might be your supply chain strategy translated. You saw a misalignment, and in the lower end you saw the inventory strategy being misaligned. So that's quite similar as you explained.
Yeah, no, it's a very common thing to see this misalignment.
So the next step, one of the three things is that the empowerment. So maybe you can give an example of how to empower this.
Well, I think empowerment is it's about giving people the right knowledge at the right time. So if I give people maybe a little bit of a light-hearted anecdote on this.
Yeah.
Imagine you've stood next to a coconut shy and you're at a fairground and someone tells you it's a pound ago or a euro ago or a dollar ago, wherever you are in the world. And you're stood there and you see 99 people give this guy a pound and 99 people throw their balls and not one of them, they all hit the coconuts, they hit everywhere, and not one of them, it manages to knock a coconut over. And then the guy turns around to you and says, do you want to have a go? Do you want to have a play? And I think it's fair to say that most of us would sit there and say, do you know what? I'm not going to bother because it's pretty obvious to me that there's something going on here. 99 people have consecutively failed. Do I want to play? Well, now, what if somebody told you that the coconut third from the right was the only one that wasn't fixed down? Now this gives you a completely different perspective on whether you want to have a go or not. So when I talk about the empowerment of things, I don't mean something that's a bit more emotional and intrinsic. I'm talking about empowering people with the right information so that they can make the right decision at the right time. And if this information is not there, or it's hidden, or it takes you 3 weeks to get to it, well, you're never going to get to the right conclusion, or you're going to be scared to make a decision in the first place.
So in the S&OP environment, we talk a lot about one number planning. So we want to have the same number. We don't want to argue about the forecast that sales or we're saying, you know, this is a wrong number. This is not realistic.
Yeah.
So the empowerment is also on that level. You know, what kind
Totally. That's what I'm trying to imply, I think, Martijn, is that it's about having the one number that we all believe. I mean, I'm sure that many people have either witnessed or been part of sort of an S&OP meeting which falls apart really early on because one person says 100, the other person says, are you sure? I thought it was 1,000. And then all of a sudden the meeting just disperses because no one has faith in the number. So that's problem number one. Or problem number two, we are getting a correct number, but it's taking days and weeks to actually arrive at that figure. So by the time we're actually having the meeting and talking about that point, well, we've moved on to the next problem, really. So it's about the right information, but also at the right time.
So the empowerment is also something like, you know, you have to give access. You have to give your employees, your colleagues, the right access to the right numbers, because otherwise, you know, they don't know what they want to talk about.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it was yourself, Martijn, that told me that there's very few companies that you meet, and you meet huge, where there is real, true belief in the one number right at the top of the business, and I think it's obviously something that people are striving to achieve.
Yes, you know, the next phase to S&OP, where you still talk about volumes and you know, matching supply and demand and volumes. When you talk about integrated business planning, you want to translate it into financial figures, and you want to have EBIT and profit margin, and basically, I hardly see any companies where the financial officer is relying on the data from your S&OP environment as their financial figures where you go to the analyst. Most of the 99% of the companies, the CFO have their own environment of financial figures to explain what's happening financially and not relying on what's happening in the S&OP world. So IBP, I hardly see it happening in a real sense. Maybe the software module implemented might be called IBP, but that doesn't mean that the CFO is thinking that this is IBP.
Yeah.
All right. And the final part you said to align is the skills part.
Yeah, I think that for me, I think that you've got to dive in at the deep end, and you've got to put, again, it sounds a little bit metaphorical, but you've got to put your cards on the table, and you've got to learn from your mistakes. And I always try and use this analogy of, I was shown this a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was a great analogy, but in Japan, they have this principle of the art of kintsugi, where it's repairing things through the highlighting of imperfections. So basically, you look at where we're not doing things correctly, and you delve into how we repair this. But of course, this can only work if this is a open process, if we are open-minded, if we are not going to be too overly critical about the individual that says, okay, I think this actual process for the new product introduction is not happening in the right way. So we really are looking at this perpetual growth. I think that nobody ever learned to swim through sitting in a room and studying hydrodynamics from a book. You know, we learned to swim through jumping in the swimming pool. Yeah. And I think that is the same case with S&OP. I think there is far too much people sit around studying, never actually getting their feet dirty. And when we should step forward and try it and perpetually improve rather than trying to just get everything perfect on day one.
If I look at this picture on the left hand side, I see a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and you know, a lot of people try to combine it every month and to create a one overview on the right hand side, and that is your one number planning. But so I think that we have to get rid of all those Excels, because it's horrible, because it is not you know, you cannot maintain it. We know all Excel.
And also, it's often the Excel is sometimes the Excel is maintainable, Martijn, but only if the particular person who built the Excel remains with you forever and is never off sick and always, you know. So, and of course, we all know these macros that grow and grow and grow, and all of a sudden you have a spreadsheet that you click a button and nothing happens for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You just see a sort of an egg timer.
Yeah, and in the end, on the right hand side, you have to have some, common overview of what's happening in your business. Otherwise, you don't have a conversation. So that's the ball on the right hand side. But
Yeah.
you have to have these imperfections highlighted to see, okay, what should we discuss?
Yeah, totally. And I think I see lots of organizations have an S&OP process on paper, and
Yeah,
I stress the word on paper because there may be too anxious, or maybe they don't have the right information to actually go forward and move forward with it and accept the imperfections, but then next month iron them out and just keep going and perpetually improve. And you know, it's compounding interest, isn't it? Because a 2% improvement every month will result in a hell of a difference at the end of the year.
yeah, yeah, right. So you have these 3 steps. So maybe you can summarize it, and then we get to the next phase. What the secret is, how to sell
Yeah,
S&OP to the organization.
yeah. I mean, I don't think these 3 steps are any sort of golden nugget that are going to get you to perfection. I think they're more about, if we wanted to embark on this, what do we really need to do? And we need to just get these common objectives and make sure it's all understood. We need to have information at the right time to people so they can make the right decisions. And we have to accept that we just have to go for it. And we have to perpetually improve and realize that day one is never going to be the finished article.
Yeah. So in the briefing, you said there are actually 3 things you need to have an effective S&OP process.
Yeah. So if I translate these the other way, really, I think that you need to have this effective communication. You need to make sure that throughout the business, whether it be giving information, there is effective communication about what the objectives are, what the priority is per department, etc. I said, this diving in, this dealing with these imperfections. We need to have the courage to make change. We need to accept that. We need to embark on it and go for it. And also, we need this transparency and we need this visibility um, in order to make sure that we're all aware of the same picture. And I think these 3 things. Without these 3 things, I think any process, no matter whether it be simplified, whether it be really complicated, I think without these 3, it will not work.
So we haven't talked that much about software
Yeah.
applications, and maybe it's the right thing because I think that S&OP is a process and not so much software. Yeah, you need some software to support it to get rid of the Excels. But that's good to talk about the process first.
Yeah, I think in terms of the process, I think any S&OP process generally flows around a sort of cycle, which is, I think we probably have it ingrained in our heads, which is sort of a very assortment or range orientated or product management, as this slide says. And then we can move on to the demand review, and then we can move on to the supply review. And really, we're trying to make sure we balance these things up. And then we're trying to reconcile it back to some sort of KPI, business review, executive review. But for me, I think people try and move through this process maybe a little bit too quickly as well and forget some of the important factors. So for me, one of the biggest important factors of this process is the very first element, which is the product management. And I think that never, given the times that we are in, as we've already said, sort of the cost of transport because of the fuel, the shortage of containers, inflation being where it is, the world being in a bit of a chaotic state, getting your range and your product introductions and your product exits and your general assortment correct, well, that is more than half the battle. And I think maybe it's considered a bit of a boring part of the S&OP process, and everyone goes on to demand and supply very quickly. But this part for me is enormous in terms of what it delivers.
I think that the product management review is the most forgotten process step in S&OP with a lot of companies. Or basically, when you talk to marketing, they have all kind of plans and R&D to develop new products and launch new products in the next 6 months or a year out. Sorry. So basically, what are your launches in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months? And basically, sales and operation might not even consider or talk about it. That's the one thing. So phasing in so launching new stuff is often forgotten. I see in S&OP, the traditional S&OP meetings, but also the phasing out. So your long tail, what are you going to do with your dead stock and the product that won't sell? And do you return it to your suppliers, or do you scrap it, or do you to have a yard sale or whatever? So I think that the first part is often forgotten. And
no, I'd agree, and I also think the maybe product life cycles. I'm not sure if they've shortened or I think it depends where you are. But I think what has happened is that the steepness of incline and also the steepness of decline has certainly increased. Things become unfashionable very quickly, and things become fashionable very quickly. So it's really important to get this right.
When I talk to companies, 9 out of 10 have seen a huge growth on SKUs. Their portfolio has been grown year over year, and it's I hardly see any companies who really cut their whole portfolio. And maybe in the COVID, like Unilever, cut down 60% of their portfolio because they only wanted to produce the necessary ones. But earlier this year, I think that was Hershey or whatever, one of the bigger ones, they already did the same 2 years ago at the beginning of COVID. But now with huge growth, they have taken this strategy cuts again back to the conversations to cut back their portfolio. So what I see, most of the companies have seen a huge growth, exponential growth of their SKUs in the portfolio in the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I think people are realizing that actually rationalizing these portfolios is perhaps probably a trick that they've missed.
Yeah, and on one wholesaler in food in the Netherlands, I know quite boldly the supply chain director said, if you want to introduce one new SKU, you have to cut out 2 SKUs. So one in, 2 out. Otherwise, I won't accept it and I won't do it.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great approach.
Very hard. Maybe you have to have some power, but
you need some political capital to achieve that.
Yes. If you are successful, and here what you see, the financial appraisal, that's the outer range of the circle. That's very important now. Again, like you mentioned, inflation and going through the roof. You have to have some financial appraisal or reconciliation now more than ever. So you need to talk in euros or pound sterlings or in dollars or in EBIT, because when you talk about the volumes, that might change rapidly.
Yeah, totally. And this comes right back to the beginning where we were talking about perhaps speaking in different languages, i.e., somebody talking units versus currency. Well, it just breaks down immediately.
And what I see now lately, the companies who already tested out price elasticity of products and are aware to what extent you can raise your prices, they are winning. Because if you don't know, or are you're scared to raise your prices, but you have to because of the inflation. So I see the companies before this inflation rise was happening. The companies who are already experienced a lot have tested out their pricing, price elasticity of products. They are the ones who are there to raise the prices. Otherwise, we absorb the raising costs, and then the margin being hit.
Well, I was with one of the leading builders merchants here in the UK recently, and they were telling me that actually now the loyalty to their brand, or the loyalty to them, is now purely associated with delivery and customer service, and that they believe that without taking advantage of their customers, which is of course not what they want to do, their price elasticity actually is not the factor that would lead them to lose customers. Their element that makes them lose customers is poor deliveries or late deliveries, and the problem they have is that there's no loyalty. Once you are in bed with somebody, you stay with somebody. So the ability to be operationally excellent and also really have experiment with price elasticity is key.
Yeah. So also with our inventory strategy survey last year, we have found out this. In spite of all the different kind of business strategy, the #1 order winner is reliability. It's not price, it's not quality. for all the strategies, it's reliability of your delivery. So be able to deliver and to promise and to deliver on your promise. So that's the order winner number one.
Well, I can speak from the heart that that's true, because if I had managed to bring back some meat and tomatoes back yesterday morning on time, my wife would have been a lot happier with me.
Yeah. One comment from the audience is saying, it's a contradiction, isn't it? Firms increasing inventory while also demanding just-in-time deliveries. What do you say?
Well, I think this comes back to the product management a little bit. So, and where your decoupling point is. So there are some products where I think you have no choice.
Yep.
You have to increase inventory to be able to give you that buffer, because you're buying these things on a 4-month lead time, which has become 6-month lead time from the Far East. You're building in some extra fat because of uncertainty. So there's just no ability to have just in time. It's a matter about you are the stockist. It's decoupled a long way away from you.
Yeah.
However, there are other instances where I think that you can, of course, achieve this, because you can have much better collaboration with your suppliers. You can have much better information flowing back and forth. So I think actually, utopia is being able to have these things within your assortment, within your supply chain, and being able to apply the right tactic to the right situation.
Yeah, getting back to the school books, I've been taught in my university days that you have, I think, 7 different kind of inventory types. So you have your buffer stock, and you name them all, So
Yeah.
People are forgetting that you have different kind of stocks, and you need them for certain reasons. So just get rid of all your stocks. No, you need your buffers, because otherwise you get stuck.
Yeah, and also you need to make sure you understand who owns different types of stock.
Yeah.
I think it's all very easy for us all to dump the ownership of all inventory onto operations or supply chain. Well, they often have no skin in the game when it comes to the introduction of new products. Yet they're the person that gets punished when that new product is suddenly obsolete because it was a dead rubber. So it's not just the different types of inventory which I think are important, but it's the ownership within the business of each type of inventory.
Yes, and so we all know the Gartner levels from 1 to 5, and maybe talk about that. See, you have from left to right your 1 to 5 maturity level regarding supply chain planning. From the left, silo planning, and then moving on, you have your operational excellence, your S&OP, and then you get moving into IBP and extended business planning. So in the middle, you see finally a screen of your software, Slim4.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain how this all works.
Yeah, so sure. So for us, Slimstock, we started off very much at the sort of left-hand lane, where we're looking at making people better through operational excellence. I think a common phraseology would be S&OE today. And we've brought in lots of tools and we've worked with lots of customers in getting them to this sort of operationally excellent place. And quite often, one of the ways I describe this is by maybe thinking of it in terms of horizon, Martijn. So if you think that, in normal terms, this is about making yourself better from today and looking forward to maybe 3 to 6 months, making sure that you're really efficient in those ways. But of course, as things have moved on here at Slimstock, we've added S&OP and IBP to our portfolio, and really this is about taking the horizon further. So S&OP, if S&OE or operational excellence finished at that sort of 3-month mark, S&OP is taking it forward now to that 24, 36-month horizon, which of course is where a lot of people are now having to plan for. We see so many more customers of ours talking about 36-month planning, whereas even as little as 3 years ago, that was something that wasn't really there. So being able to have this visibility, and of course, at the operational excellence level, you're probably talking still at the SKU level, the SKU location level, whereas perhaps at the this level 3, as you see on the screen, you're talking at the product group level, you're talking at the product range level, or you're looking at the taxonomy or the hierarchy, whichever word you want to use, of your organization. And then IBP is obviously taking it even further to the next level, bringing in these initiatives. And when I say initiatives, I mean very significant initiatives. You know, I currently operate in the UK, Germany, and France, and I now want to go and break America. So that's a significant initiative. What do I need to do that? How am I going to build that into my plan? How is it all going to come together? And how am I going to reconcile it from a sales, financial, operational perspective? And then just at the far right-hand side, sort of this, I would class this as sort of end-to-end business planning, which, to be honest, we've been doing for a while, but I think that we don't advertise it in a we advertise it by stealth. I say that this is about being collaborative. So, you know, how many of you are you aware to your suppliers? Are you aware of whether you are an A, B, or C level customer?
Yeah.
To your suppliers. If you're an A-level customer to your supplier, why not, you know, embark on a bit more of a collaborative approach? Start sharing more information with them. You're an A-level customer to them. They will embrace you. They will listen to you. They will work together. You know, we should really be treating these suppliers as if they were your own manufacturing business. Indeed, if they were your own manufacturer, you would be embracing them. You would be talking to them. But because they have a different business card, we think they're the enemy. So we need to really work on making sure that we're sharing this collaborative information, both backwards to our suppliers, but also forwards to our customers. It would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we all got promotional information from the retailer that we're supplying ahead of time so that we could plan our lead time and everything in there. Well, and I'm sure the retailer would be grateful for better availability for you.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, being this, I know it sounds a cheesy phrase, but this collaboration really would benefit everybody at the end-to-end phrase.
You know, two remarks from my side. You know, I hardly see many companies who are doing an ABC analysis both on product and customer side simultaneously. So you get an ABC matrix 3x3, and then you get rid of your CC products because, you know, you don't sell them that much to lousy customers.
Yep.
So get rid of them. So that's one end. So in the portfolio management, I hardly see companies doing that every month, say, on one end. And it's a good thing that you say, okay, who are your A customers and who are your A suppliers? And why don't you connect them? And why don't you share stuff on a higher level? And of course, we know, you know, the retailers, you know, they don't want to share the point of sale data to their brand manufacturers. Not so much all the data, but I can imagine, you know, for a Tesco, they might be willing to share certain category data with certain A customers. Not all of them, but, you know, on the strategic ones, they do want to share it and talk about it, and probably they are doing right now, but not all in all.
No, and I understand that there is some anxiety about the sharing of data, but I think if the conversation just went along the way to say, what data would you be comfortable of sharing? And then the other side of the conversation says, what data would you need to make, you know, make the situation better? Then you're going to find at least a little bit of common ground.
You know, if there is a trolley full of milk going into Tesco, Tesco is already making a loss on that milk. So I cannot understand why the suppliers of milk are talking to Tesco in a totally different way, because, you know, they have to deal with it, you know, because otherwise, and maybe changing with the inflation rate, but these kind of strategic products and making a loss of hardly a margin, these are the ones you have to address.
Yeah.
And the final part, you know, you say something about the C-level ambition and the baseline, and two triangles meeting each other. Can you explain it?
Sure. Well, I think you need a situation where everybody understands what's going on and what their role is in it, and perhaps where we need to try and meet. And I think quite often what happens is that we have this. If I just look at from the sort of bottom up, you have sort of the base, which let's call it, you know, the as-is situation, and then what we what we put onto the as-is situation is organic growth or autonomous growth that will happen just through us being good where we are. But then we also have this sort of executive ambition where they want to go, and this is, you know, quite often far-reaching from what we've achieved. So it's important, first of all, that we need to understand how these directives and initiatives are going to impact the whole supply chain from the operational side of things, but also what the gap is and how we're actually going to mitigate that gap, deal with the gap. And you can't do this without having total visibility. So it's all about taking an executive or a C-level ambition and making it actually translating it into actual real tangible tasks and activities that will mean the succeeding of that ambition becomes far more probable rather than just an ambition being stuck to a whiteboard somewhere.
So I've seen this application, this new layer, S&OP layer of Slim 4 with of yours. So what was kind of remarkable is, you have your projects. So you're moving into China and you have ambition to grow a certain amount of million into China, but you don't know how you're actually gonna do it. Is it opening some flagship stores or creating some deals with a joint venture over there? So basically, this kind of C-level ambition is like, we want to grow into China or move into China. And then this application of Slim 4, this layer, is translated into actions, projects, and to track it down, how to actually execute these ambition plans.
Yeah, I guess it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, Martijn. So, we want to make sure we achieve the goal, but we need to break it down into these actual tangible things and what the impact of that tangible thing is and how it affects everything. And it's quite a lot to absorb from just a purely mental point of view. But actually, most of the individual components are quite simplistic. We just need somewhere to bring it all together and getting back to this one number, the impact that we were talking about before.
Yeah. So basically, you created this business dashboard, I would say. So where you can have this C-level overview, how we are on track of our ambitions and our plan and our budget on one hand, but also to drill it down on SKU level, on categories, on promotions, that kind of stuff, to get together, to consolidate it, and to get on one page or one overview.
Yeah, and to understand where to put our efforts in.
Yeah.
I talk about a rather simplistic overview. Is that and forgive me if anybody is in the fast food industry on this call, but it's not intended. But maybe something like a McDonald's. What you just seeing where you are growing is one thing, but understanding are chicken-based products going faster than beef, going faster than plant? Where do I put my marketing effort? Where do I put my money? Where do I put my energy and effort? And without the visibility of seeing it at the product group or the sub-product group or the region, cross-referenced with these, well, you don't know. You really are shooting in the dark.
So basically, this application is a layer on top of Slim 4. So it's already available for your Slim 4 customer, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. So the platform is already established. The data is already there. So from a technical point of view, it's extremely minimal workload there because we're basically just plugging it onto the platform that already exists.
Okay. All right. Getting to almost to the end of what you have to present. So what is the key in your opinion of S&OP?
Yeah, for me, I think the key, and I'm probably repeating myself now, but it's all about having information and having the courage to, and the freedom and the processes to be able to act on that information in a timely manner and understand what that information means to all departments. And I think if we start sharing this information, then, well, our decision making is only going to become better.
So, looking at this picture, this looked like a happy family. So I don't know how your family looks like after yesterday, but
I'll be honest. Well, we came home and we tasted the spaghetti bolognese, and yeah, I realized I didn't need to put as much effort into getting the ingredients. My daughter is never going to be on MasterChef.
But still, you can laugh about it.
Yeah, yeah. So no.
All right. Was quite right on time. That's a remarkable thing. But so you have a crisp message. So from the audience, if you have some questions still to Richard and myself, so please feel free to ask questions. You see the Q&A functionality on the right hand side. So maybe to you, maybe to wait for a few seconds for any questions. What do you see as the main obstacle to sell this application to the companies you are addressing and you encounter?
I think the main obstacle, maybe not associated with the selling of the product, but I think that it's also aligned with S&OP processes in general, is that I think there is too much procrastination when it comes to this particular subject matter. There is no, I think it's a tough subject matter. It really is something that you learn by doing. It really is something that you have to accept that day one will be a significantly different picture to day 50. And so I think that the biggest hurdle is to just embark on it and stop, don't procrastinate on the process itself.
And I see a lot of companies are looking for S&OP solutions, software solutions. So a lot of RFPs and that kind of stuff. Do you think that most of the companies have the right approach, how to select the right S&OP software?
Yeah, it's a hard one for me to answer if I'm being honest, Martijn, because I think you've got to take into consideration everybody's context. However, the one thing I will say is that I see too many people talking about specifics in RFP. So they're talking about, does the software do X, Y, and Z? And it's a really specific thing that is related to their business. And instead of taking it from a bit more of a higher level, does the software enable me to see product group evolution of demand? Does it enable me to see the gap? Does it enable me to see my budget versus forecast, etc.? So that would be a sort of sensible approach, but drilling down into the minutiae of your individual company of a specific question, which, let's be honest, probably would disappear if the S&OP process was good anyway, is probably where I think people would go wrong.
So, I gave a whole presentation how to select S&OP software in last fall. And basically, a lot of the companies are focusing, like you said, on functionality and not so much on the business expertise, the easiness to implement this software, or the technology part. So basically, I compare, how to select a car. You don't buy a car on specifications. So you do a test drive and you have a feel for it, and you know who's the dealer and that kind of stuff. So I think buy software like you are buying a car, and you don't buy a car on specifications as such.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I guess just to keep the analogy going, if you live on a farm, then you don't want a Ferrari. And if you live, so you've got to also, and maybe the person that lives on the Autobahn doesn't want a tractor. So you've got to make sure that the solution is geared towards your environment.
So yeah, my latest slide of this presentation was a purple Lamborghini, hit by a lamppost just after a mile from the dealer where he bought this Lamborghini. Basically, if you have a very sophisticated kind of software, you may not even are able to drive it, to run it.
Yeah, well, I always say, you could give me a Formula One car, I'm not even sure I could start it or even get in it.
No. A question from the audience: why are big companies still using Excel, ISO, investing in IBP tools like Slimstock?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe somebody could, I'd like to ask them why that was the case. I think there's probably comfort in their Excel in a bizarre way. It's something that they understand, and I guess it's potentially for a very important bit of software, or a very important process, should I say. The risk is there. The risk is that you're throwing away something that on the surface works for you, and perhaps also because many of these S&OP projects come with an astronomical cost to them. And so therefore, when someone says, "Oh, can I have £1 trillion to do this?" then, well, why, when the Excel is maybe not perfect, but it's doing a job? Well, so for me, I think that it doesn't need to be as complicated as people make it out, both financially and from a technical point of view.
I think an answer is also a lot of company are still using, or people are using, is out of fear, because they get into the unknown, and sometimes some experts are sitting on their own Excels because they have invested a lot of their intelligence into creating this Excel with a lot of intelligence in it. And the main thing is, how do you get this intelligence out of this brilliant Excel out of your Excel and make it explainable why this has worked, and how do you translate it into other kind of software? I think that's also the challenge.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going through a project at the moment where, in a very fortunate way, that the company in question, their Excel document was actually really, really good, really good. But the problem they had was they just accepted that it was an enormous risk because there was one person managing this Excel
Yep.
document in essence, and this person was not getting any younger, and although they were very happy with it, it wasn't future proof in any way at all, and they realized that they could, upgrade, so to speak, and do it without hardly any risk. So the time was right for them.
Yeah. Another question: how does S&OP support agility? How can we build the agility that is needed in 2022 into long-term strategic planning?
For me, I think that the agility, if you think of, somebody said this to me during COVID, which I thought was a great analogy, is that if you have a great S&OP process, and let's just hypothetically assume that this is a monthly process, and if you have access to that one source of the truth that we've been talking about and the visibility, you've been running this S&OP process and it's been fantastic every month. Well, this company in question, they accelerated and they said, well, hold on, let's just, during these bizarre times, let's run our S&OP process every fortnight.
Yep.
So they followed exactly the same route, but they were running, and because they had, and it wasn't a Slimstock customer, by the way, because they had this process already in place, they were able to double the speed or the velocity with which they were having this process, which enabled them to really be agile and jump on, jump on supply issues, jump on demand trends, and really react to what was going on. This was back in the summertime of 2020, so they were really able to react quickly to it. And so having a solid process and a solid system gave them the ability to either speed up or slow down accordingly.
Yeah, and I think having one system, not having to tap in all kind of different system in your ERP, your WMS, etc., your CRM system, that's a burden. So knowing the Slim 4 environment, you can easily do this run nowadays within seconds, whereas in the old days you have batch wise, where you had to run it in a fortnight to get this results.
Yeah.
So basically now the systems are way quicker now.
Yeah, and
So
don't underestimate the human element as well. I think if we all go to a meeting and that meeting is full of tension and full of people trying to get the right number and arguing and spreadsheets crashing and all of this chaos around us, sooner or later we will start to dread that meeting, and sooner or later we will not look forward to it. And of course, this is we can talk about business all we like, but we're all human, and if we start to go to these meetings with an apathetic attitude and a defeated attitude before we walk in there because of this situation, well, the result is going to be miserable as well. Whereas if these meetings remain positive, if the things that are easy, such as getting one version of the truth, getting fast answers, getting good visibility, if that's easy, well, our attitude and our persona, and our the atmosphere of the meeting
final
changes.
question. We had only 1 minute to go, but before we go into the lounge, so we have a further conversation. But intriguing question. One point that is still not clear is how to engage sales to get their buy-in. So I think all supply chain people are already on board, but most difficult is sales and finance. Any specific tips to get buy-in by sales?
Yeah, I think for me, getting buy-in by sales, most of the sales departments or people are commission orientated, financially led, revenue led, whatever the phrase is. And I think for me, making it clear to them that actually them assisting you, or them assisting operations, should I say, will result categorically in a better availability and a better service to their customer. And it is 100 times easier to sell to a satisfied customer than it is to sell to a dissatisfied customer. And you will also, this service will start to enable you to encroach on your competitors' territory as well. So I think making it clear that them helping you actually is them helping themselves. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's as easy as that throwaway phrase, but bring them on the journey. Make it clear to them how they can help. And I think you'll be amazed.
And what I saw last year, a lot of company, especially last year, had grown from 100% of the budget growing into a sales forecast of 120. But in the end, they couldn't deliver. So they ended up at 105 or 110. So, if you had, and that last year, was a right time to sell it to the salespeople, because, if you have a better understanding, you can manage to grow this 120. And instead of, you were not able to deliver at the end. So basically, last year was a great year to sell it to your salespeople, to have a better understanding and better conversations to get on board on this. All right, we are at the hour. So basically, next we will sitting down. Richard and myself will be sitting down at table 1. So we have some more questions. You want to extend the conversations in the next 30 minutes. I invite you to join us. If not, thank you for listening in. Richard, thank you for explaining this and your honesty about your family and how to deal with all this. So thank you for this.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And for the audience, thank you for listening in. And maybe you will listen to the recording. You will be able to download the presentation within the 48 hours. So thank you for joining it. And I hope to see you back in another Wednesday, in the next webinar Wednesday, in 2 weeks' time, actually. If not, I would like to see you in the lounge. So maybe we can have a further discussion. So maybe I see you there, or I see you another time. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.